Hello friends. So in this video we will discuss about the Dutch. In the previous lecture we have already studied about the Portuguese in India, and they were the first to reach India. The second European country was the Dutch, and Dutch were the people of the Netherlands. Netherlands is also termed as Holland. Okay. So these are the things about Dutch. Let's begin today's class. The Dutch. Commercial enterprise inspired the Dutch to undertake voyages to the east. So Dutch was also occupied by Spain, and after it got its freedom, they also wanted to expand their commercial enterprises to the east. Okay, for that they had to undertake the voyages. So after this Portuguese, the Dutch were the second European to set foot in India. Okay, Cornelis de Houtman in 1596 was the first Dutchman to reach Sumatra and Bantam. Sumatra and Bantam are the islands below Malaysia. So who was the first Dutchman to reach Sumatra and Bantam, that is to the east of India? He was Cornelis de Houtman. In which year? In 1596. Next, in 1602, the States General of the Netherlands, means the government of the Netherlands, merged several trading companies into the Netherlands East India Company and permit them to trade in East Indies, including India. So, government of Netherlands decided to merge several trading company into a united Netherlands East India Company, and this company was allowed to trade in the East Indies including India. This much is clear. Next point is, this company was also given the right to wage war. The government of Netherlands has given permission to conduct war or make treaties or occupy territory and build fort. These rights were given to the companies, the United Netherlands East India Company. They can conduct war, they can wage war, they can make treaties, they can occupy territory, and for this they need not to seek permission from the government of Netherlands. Okay, this was the thing. Next is, we will talk about Dutch settlement. Okay. So, after their arrival in India, the Dutch established their first factory where? At Masulipatam in Andhra in the year 1605. They started establishing trading center in the different part of India and thus become a threat to the Portuguese. So Masulipatam was the first place in the Coromandel area of India wherein they had established their first factory. And after that they started establishing their trading center in different parts, and this is why they became a threat to the Portuguese. Now they also captured Nagapatnam near Madras, that is Chennai, from the Portuguese. So they have captured Nagapatnam, and we have read in the previous class that Nagapatnam was occupied by Portuguese near Madras. Now it was captured by Dutch. So thus this thing will create threat and rift between the Portuguese and the Dutch. Alright, and made it their main stronghold. In this event had made them and or proved them as a strong European country in South India. Okay, Dutch were very strong. And in the 1609, they opened a factory in Pulicat. Okay, now they have started expanding their trading center. So in 1609, they opened a factory in Pulicat, which is in the north of Madras. Other major factories in India were at Surat in the year 1616, Bimlipatnam in the year 1641, Karaikal in the year 1645, Chinsura in the year 1653, Baranagar Kasim Bazar near Murshidabad, Balasore Patna, Nagapatnam in the year 1658 and Cochin in the year 1666. So all these places like Pulicat, Surat, Bimlipatnam, Karaikal, Chinsura, Baranagar, Kasim Bazar, Balasore, Patna, Nagapatnam and Cochin, all those places they have opened their factory. They traded indigo, and which was produced in the Yamuna Valley and central India. Clothes and silk from Bengal, Gujarat and Coromandel. Saltpeter from Bihar and opium and rice from Ganga Valley. So saltpeter is a thing which is used to make the gunpowder. And opium, in the previous video we have read that it was introduced by Portuguese, and now Dutch has started its trading from the Ganga Valley, this opium and rice trading. Okay. Next, we will talk about Anglo-Dutch rivalry. British dominance in eastern trade posed a serious challenge, okay, to the Dutch. Hostilities between the Dutch and the British reached their peak in 1623 at Amboina, a place in present-day Indonesia, which the Dutch had captured from Portuguese in 1605, where they massacred 10 Englishmen and 9 Japanese. After a long war, both sides reached an agreement in 1667 by which the British agreed to draw all their claims to Indonesia, and the Dutch retired from India to concentrate on their trade in Indonesia. The most important Indian commodities traded by the Dutch were silk, cotton, indigo and rice. So this is important. What were the main commodities traded by the Dutch? They were silk, cotton, indigo, rice and opium. Next is decline of the Dutch in India. The Dutch became involved in trade in Malay archipelago. So archipelago means group of islands. It means group of island. Okay. So you have seen there are so many islands surrounded where Malaysia lies, and together they are termed as Malay archipelago. Okay. Group of island. Furthermore, in Third Anglo-Dutch War, that is 1672 and 74, communications between the Surat and New English settlement of Bombay were broken, leading to the capture of 3 English home ships in the Bay of Bengal by the Dutch forces. The retaliation by English resulted in the defeat of the Dutch in the Battle of Hooghly in November 1759, which dealt a crushing blow to Dutch ambitions in India. The Dutch were not much interested in empire building in India. Their main business interest was in the Spice Island of Indonesia, from where they made huge profits through the trade. So Dutch were mainly focused in trading with the group of islands nearby Malaysia. Okay. Now in the next, we have to remember that in the Third Anglo-Dutch War, conducted in the year 1672 to 74, the communication between the Surat and New English settlement of Bombay were broken. That means the means of communication between Surat and Bombay were broken, and due to this, 3 English home ships, okay, 3 of the English home ships were captured by Dutch forces in Bay of Bengal. Now this Dutch forces, what they had done, they had captured the English home ships. And how many English home ships? 3. The Dutch had captured 3 English home ships in the Bay of Bengal when the communication between the Surat and the Bombay were broken. Now the English had to reply to this against Dutch. So what they did, they had defeated Dutch badly in the Battle of Hooghly, took place in November 1759, which was a crushing blow to Dutch ambitions in India. And also that Dutch were not much interested in empire building. Okay. So their main focus was the business interest that was the Spice Island of Indonesia, from where they made huge profits through trades. So this is how we had read about Dutch and how they had expanded and how they were moved out from India, and they constituted themselves to the Malay archipelago, okay, for spice trading. Next is the English. Let's begin. So this is also very, very important. The third European who came to India was the English. The Charter of Queen Elizabeth I. Francis Drake's voyage around the world in 1580 and the British victory over the Spanish Armada in 1588 created a new spirit of enterprise among the English, which encouraged sailors to venture eastward. This means Francis Drake was on his voyage around the world, and during the year 1580, and British victory over Spanish Armada in 1588 motivated British and encouraged them to move towards or to sail towards eastward for trading. Okay. So Spain was very strong, and after defeating Spanish Armada, British were filled with courage and spirit to move towards the eastward. As soon as they came to know about the huge profit earned by the Portuguese in the Eastern trade, English merchants also wanted to participate in it. Next is, in 1599, a group of English merchants calling themselves the Merchant Adventurers formed a company. On December 31, 1600, Queen Elizabeth I issued a charter, granting exclusive trade rights to the company named Governor and Company of Merchant of London Trading in East Indies. Initially, a monopoly of 15 years was granted, which was extended for infinite time by new charter in May 1609. Now see, after hearing that how Portuguese in the Eastern trade made a huge profit, English also wanted to take part in the trading with the East. So what they will do, there were a group of English merchants, and that group of English merchants call themselves as merchant adventurer. They formed a company and they also called themselves as merchant adventurer. Now, on December 31st, 1600, Queen Elizabeth I issued a charter granting exclusive trade rights to the company named Governor and Company of Merchant of London Trading in East Indies. So the Queen has issued charter to whom? To this group of merchant adventurers or English merchant and governor, and they made a company that were given right to trade in East Indies. Initially, a monopoly of 15 years was granted, which was extended for infinite time by the new charter in May 1609. So, few things to remember. In 1599, group of English merchants, they used to call themselves as merchant adventurer. Now, constituting all these merchant adventurers, Queen Elizabeth I in December 31st, 1600 issued a charter which include the exclusive grant trade rights to the company, and the name of the company was Governor and Company of Merchant of London Trading in East Indies. So at first only the grant was given for 15 years, which was extended for infinite time by the new charter in May 1609. Our next topic is progress of the English company. So let's begin. Foothold in the West and South. By whom? By the English company. Captain Hawkins reached Jahangir's court in April 1609, but the mission to establish a factory in Surat did not succeed due to opposition from the Portuguese, and Hawkins left Agra in November 1611. So in the 1609, when Captain Hawkins reached Jahangir's court in April 1609, he could not succeed in his mission to establish a factory in Surat due to opposition from Portuguese, and Hawkins left Agra in November 1611. Had to leave Agra because he didn't get the permission in 1609. Now again, in 1611, British started trading in Masulipatam on the southeastern coast of India and later established a factory there in 1616. In 1612, Captain Thomas Best defeated Portuguese at sea near Surat. This was a turning point for the English. When they defeated Portuguese in 1612, at that time they impressed the Mughal emperor, Jahangir, because Portuguese were very strong. Their navy were highly developed. Advanced cannons and ships were used by them, and to defeat them was very challenging. So English succeed in their mission in 1612. Captain Thomas Best defeated Portuguese at sea near Surat. So Jahangir will give permission after this event to the British to establish a factory in Surat in early 1613. In 1615, Sir Thomas Roe came to the court of Jahangir as ambassador. Ambassador means doot. Who's ambassador? Ambassador of James I, and remained there till February 1619. So from 1615 to 1619, he remained there in the Jahangir's court. Although he failed to make any commercial treaties with the Mughal emperor, but succeeded in obtaining several privileges, including permission to establish factories at Agra, Ahmedabad and Bharuch. The progress of English company was not smooth. Initially, they had to struggle with the Portuguese and the Dutch, but changing circumstances helped them and the things started turning in their favor, because previously they were not getting permission from the Mughal emperor, but later slowly things and the circumstances started changing that held them and things were in their favor. In 1662, when Charles II married the Portuguese Princess Catherine, he received Bombay in dowry. Who is he here? The English. English received Bombay in dowry. So some matrimonial relation established, and this is how Bombay was received by the English in dowry. When? In 1662. Charles II married to Portuguese Princess Catherine, which was given over to the East India Company in 1668. Bombay was given to the East India Company in 1668 for an annual payment of only £10, which is very less. Later in 1687, the headquarters of Western Presidency was shifted from Surat to Bombay. So now there was a silent peace between the British and the Portuguese. This is how English intelligently managed all their rivalry against Portuguese by marrying Prince Catherine, and thus silence and peace existed between British and the Portuguese. Not only this, there was also an Anglo-Dutch agreement. Under this agreement, Dutch agreed to not to interfere with English company trade in India. Thus, British got rid of these two rivalry. Who were they? Portuguese and Dutch, by signing treaty and by marrying Princess Catherine. The Golden Farman was issued by the Sultan of Golconda in 1632, granted the British free trading rights at Golconda port on an annual payment of 500 pagodas. In 1639, the British merchant Francis Day obtained permission from the ruler of Chandragiri to build fortified factory in Madras, which later became Fort St. George and replaced Masulipatam as headquarters of English settlement in South India. Thereafter, the English extended their trading activities to the east and started factories at Hariharpur, in Mahanadi Delta, and at Balasore in Odisha in 1633. Foothold in Bengal. At that time, Bengal was an important province of Mughal emperor, which was a prosperous province and advanced in trade and commerce. Commercial and political control over it appeared an attractive and profitable proposition to the British. In 1651, Shah Shuja, the Subedar or governor of Bengal, allowed British to trade in Bengal in return for an annual payment of rupees 3,000 in lieu of all duties. Factories in Bengal were started at Hooghly in 1651 and other places like Kasim Bazar, Patna and Rajmahal. The privileges of the decrease in company's business was sometimes interrupted by customs officials at local checkpoints who demanded payment of tolls. In pursuance of its changed policy, the company wanted to build a fortified settlement at Hooghly so that force could be used if necessary. William Hedges, the company's first agent and governor in Bengal, appealed to Shaista Khan, the Mughal governor of Bengal, in August 1682 for redress of grievance. Since appeal yielded no result, hostilities began between the British and the Mughals. Next is foothold in Bengal. At that time, Bengal was an important province of Mughal Empire which was a prosperous province and advanced in trade and commerce. Commercial and political control over it appeared an attractive and profitable proposition to the British. In 1651, Shah Shuja, the Subedar or the governor of Bengal, allowed the Britishers to trade in Bengal in return for an annual payment of 3,000 in lieu of all duties and factories in Bengal. Factories in Bengal were started at Hooghly in the year 1651 and the other places like Kasim Bazar, Patna, Rajmahal. Despite of the privileges of the decree, the company's business was sometimes interrupted by customs officials at local checkpoints. Now this is an important point that companies officials were interrupted at checkpoints who demanded payment of tolls. So in pursuance of its policy, the company wanted to build a fortified settlement at Hooghly. So in order to escape from these things and to secure themselves, they wanted to fortify their company in Hooghly. So that the force could be used whenever it is required. Fortified means armed force will be there, to protect themselves. They will make a boundary, fortify their company, And William Hedges, the company's first agent and the governor in Bengal, appealed to Shaista Khan about this toll problem. The Mughal governor of Bengal in August 1682 for redress of grievance. Since the appeal yielded no result, hostilities began between the British and the Mughals. 4 years later, in October 1686, the Imperial Mughal captured Hooghly and the British were forced to leave Hooghly. So this was the thing. And they were sent to an unhealthy location at the mouth of the river Ganga. After the Mughal attack on Hooghly, George Charnock, a company's agent, started negotiation with the Mughals to return to the place called Sultanate. Charnock signed a treaty with the Mughals in February 1690 and returned to the Sultanate in August 1690. Thus, an English factory was established at Sultanate on 10 February 1691 and on the same day a royal decree was issued, allowing the British to satisfactorily carry on their trade in Bengal on payment of rupees 3,000 per annum. Shobha Singh, a zamindar of Vardhaman district, rebelled and later gave the British an excuse to fortify his settlement at Sultanate in 1696. In 1698, British succeeded in obtaining permission to purchase the zamindari of 3 villages, Sultanate, Govindpur and Kaligata, that is also called as Kalighat, on payment of rupees 1200. And in the year 1700, a fortified settlement was built there and named Fort William. It became the seat of the Eastern Presidency, Calcutta, and Sir Charles Eyre became its first president. So this is how the British succeeded in obtaining permission to purchase the zamindari of three villages, that is Sutanati, Govindpur and Kalighat, that is also called as Kalikatha, on the payment of 1200 only. And in the year 1700, they fortified their settlement and named it as Fort William, which became the seat of the Eastern Presidency, Calcutta, and Sir Charles Eyre became its first president. That is all for today's class. In the next class, we shall discuss further and read about Farooq Shia's Farman. Till then, take care of yourself. Bye.